Welcome back to Horns High Studios for another episode of 666 Seconds of Metal. That means each one of these videos is less than 666 seconds, or you know it, 11 minutes and 6 seconds. And I got Shane here from Winnipeg, Manitoba. How's it going, Shane?
What's up, Pete? Doing pretty good, ready to get this on.
Killing it, man. Such a great week last week for releases, so I'm anxious to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, this week we're going to be talking a bit about the new Exhorder album, Defective Omnium. I'm sure most people watching this have heard of Exhorder, and I was a big fan of them ever since Slaughter in the Vatican came out back in 1990. And I got to bring up the old Pantera thing.
Yes,
who came up with the groove metal? Pantera, Exhorder was one copying the other. I don't know. I don't really fucking care, but. Vulgar Display of Power is a great album and all, but I think Slaughter in the Vatican really does circles around Pantera when it comes to thrash metal, so that's about where I sit on it anyways. And
I agree with that.
So, as I said, I just loved Slaughter in the Vatican. At the time, I wouldn't have even considered it groove thrash. It was just more straight up just thrash. But after that, I had a little bit of a falling out with Exhorder. I wasn't a big fan of the Law. I mean, it was okay and everything. Of course, I've heard it many times. I just didn't find myself coming back to it.
Right.
Same thing with More in the Southern Skies. It was touted as their comeback album. I just didn't see it. Sure, it was okay. Gave it a few spins, but it just didn't do it for me. Didn't find myself going back to it. So I had low expectations for this new album, Defective Omnium. But as it turns out, this is kind of a quirky, weird album, and
it is weird.
It is a little bit strange, but it's just different enough to keep me interested, and it's growing on me. There's some really good bangers on this album.
Now, didn't they lose? What was his name? The guitar player that they lost?
They lost two guitarists, both guitarists, back in 2020.
Okay, I thought because I saw in that interview that I sent you with one of them, right? The guy that wrote a lot of the material and stuff. He was pretty sour, but it sucks when bands that you like have that kind of inner fight, that just really sucks to see.
And it was pretty up in the air. Well, was this the end of Exhorder? But, there's some really good bangers on this album, and, I'm glad they're back and going to see what direction they go into. And because, like I say, what I found most enduring about this new album is just a mixture of different subgenres of metal, and there's a whole lot going on, and it's almost like they're trying to find themselves again. There's a very large hardcore part to this album, mixed in with the Exhorder's signature brand of groove thrash metal. So there's thrash, groove, sludge, hardcore, and a bit of death metal in there,
right.
Just for good measure. So it's very interesting, quirky. It's almost experimental, but it's really put Exhorder back on my radar, and I think it's going to be interesting to see where this current lineup is going to be taking Exhorder in the future. I'm hoping with Pat O'Brien in the band now that things are going to get a bit heavier.
Yeah. I love Pat O'Brien. He's a really nice guy. I met him. Super dude. I'm really glad he's got his shit back together again and he's playing, because that was just a sad situation. So I'm glad to see him back, and really a weird, like you said, this album is just like all those different styles in a blender, and out comes that album. It's just kind of wild.
Yeah. So we'll go through a little bit of history here first, then we'll go through the current lineup a bit more. They were formed back in '86, came out with their first full-length metal album in 1990, Slaughter in the Vatican. They released their second album, The Law, in '92, and then there was silence. We didn't get anything from Exhorder for... I had to double check it. I'm coming up with 27 years here. That's a hell of a hiatus in the music industry.
Holy shit.
I don't know what happened to them during that time. They did maintain their cult classic metal status, but I'm pretty positive their lack of albums has hurt their chances of being bigger than they are, bigger than they could be. I mean, they're pretty big in the metal world. They do have that cult classic status, but I think they really could have been bigger.
Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree 100% there.
So in 2019, they released what was touted as their comeback album, War in the Southern Skies. Again, I liked it, but, it just didn't keep me coming back for more. 5 long years after that, quite a long delay again, we got this album, Defective Omnium. It's dropped at the beginning of March of this year on Nuclear Blast Records.
Nice.
Didn't have high expectations, but like I say, very pleasantly surprised. And Exhorder's a 4-piece band and out of New Orleans. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
New Orleans, Louisiana. New Orleans. They formed in 85. On guitars, we have Pat O'Brien. He's the newcomer to Exhorder. If you're a fan of Cannibal Corpse, you no doubt recognize the name. I attribute the heavier parts of the album to Pat and hope to see a bit more of his influence in the future.
Yeah.
Vocals, Kyle Thomas. He also does the lyrics and songwriting. He's been there since the beginning on every album. The only thing new here for Kyle is that he's playing guitar as well as singing on the album. So that's our second guitarist. He's definitely the band anchor. It's Kyle's band, basically.
Right.
On bass, we have Jason V. Brooks. He's a recent addition, just joined them during More in the Southern Skies. And on drums, we have Sasha Horn, same as him. He just joined on the last album, and neither of those guys have been in a lot of bands.
Okay.
So the new album, talk about that a bit. It's Defective Omnium, which is Latin for the failure of it all. This is basically the theme to the album lyrically. To quote Kyle, the world is a dumpster fire and we're all complicit. And that's pretty much the vein of the whole album. It's pretty metal in that regard, very observational metal. Yeah. Talking about how the world's gone to shit.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Vocals are pretty impressive. He's got a very large range to his vocals. He goes from a shout to a growl to a snarl to a crooning vibrato, and he can really hit the high notes. He's no Rob Halford or Bruce Dickinson here, but he can hit those high notes, and so there's quite a range in the vocal styles on the album.
Yeah.
Mixing, production, just superb on the album. Bass sticks out. Drumming is great. There's all kinds of drumming on the album, lots of shifts and tempo changes, thrashy double bass gallops, tribal drums, blast beats. See, you got the polka thrash beats in there. It's just, it's all over the place. Guitars are really all over the place too. Of course, Pat, he fucking kills it with the solos.
Oh,
There's a bit of trade-off.
The solos are like just scorching every one of them,
They are great, and he does trade-offs with Kyle as well. And there's just some very subgenre bending experiences in this. Like I say, everything's in here, from the groove to the thrash to the death and hardcore, slower sludge.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. Like you said, it's very eclectic in that way they do it, but I could see where that may turn some people off that don't want to hear hardcore, because I heard a lot of New York hardcore in there. I heard, like you said, all those different styles, and then the Pat O'Brien thing. I mean, it could turn some people off, but I like it because it's different, but I could see that maybe not being a positive thing to some.
There's actually only 2 tracks in there where it has that really hardcore edge to it, punky. I know it feels like more just because you're not used to it, but there's actually only 2 tracks in there that have a real hardcore influence to them. The rest of it is just all bangers, great songs, and the artwork on the album pretty cool there too. It's Travis Smith. Scene pieces design. He's done covers for Death, Overkill, Megadeth, Opeth, Suffocation. So
nice.
Pretty well known artist. Yeah. So check out the new Exhorder album, Defective Omnium. If you don't care for it, give it another listen. It might grow on you, because it's really growing on me. There's way more to like here than not to like. It's a little different than the other Exhorder albums, and glad to see him back. Glad they got the band back together. Looking forward to the future to see what they're going to come up with.
Yeah, I agree. I think the next one, will have probably more continuity than this one. This almost seems kind of like they kind of went through the scrap pile and put some of this stuff together because of the weird changes, but maybe we'll see. I mean, they may come up with their own way of doing it. I mean, that's awesome. It is good to see a band from back in the day, making it, still putting out music,
Oh, hell yeah.
So, all right. Well, you guys got something to chew on there, some new Exhorder. So we'll see you next time on 666 Seconds of Metal.
Horns fucking high.